If you watch the news recently, you've probably seen a lot of talk about the fiscal cliff. I wanted to make a quick video and explain what exactly the fiscal cliff is. Basically, the fiscal cliff is a series of tax increases and spending cuts that are due to take place on January 1st, 2013. The tax increases are the expiration of the Bush tax cuts. They were signed in 2001 and 2003, and because they weren't paid for, they had a sunset provision, which means they would run out at a future date. That date was originally supposed to be 2010, but it was extended by President Obama and Congress at the end of 2010 in the lame duck session of Congress. It was a compromise deal. Obama wanted an extension of unemployment benefits. Republicans wanted tax cuts extended, so they grouped up, they got everything they wanted, and they passed it. It put it past the election, the 2012 election, so it would be dealt with after all that mess was done. So that's the first half of the fiscal cliff. The second half of the fiscal cliff is some automatic spending cuts that are due to take place next year. These cuts are a result of the Budget Control Act. It's something called sequestration. You've probably heard that term thrown around a lot recently as well. What happened was the United States has a debt limit. They can't go over a certain amount of debt. The Congress has to approve extra borrowing. This is usually done automatically. Congress just approves it and it goes on. But this time around, Republicans said, no, we're not going to just arbitrarily raise the debt ceiling. We want to cut some spending if we're going to agree to more debt. So they got into this. It was this long, drawn-out debate. They passed the Budget Control Act, which set up a super committee, which is basically just a certain group of congressmen to come together and come up with some budget cuts. When they failed, automatic cuts were triggered, and they begin next year. And this includes, I believe, $600 billion in military spending over the next 10 years, which is about $60 billion a year in defense spending. So you have both of these measures are going to hit next year unless Congress does something and comes up with a better deal before then. The problem with that is you've seen it happen in Europe. This is basically austerity, and it's when the government pulls back, it always has a drag on the economy. Europe is in recession right now. Some countries are, due to these austerity measures. The same thing happened to this country in 1937 in the middle of the Great Depression. Things started to look better, and then the government kind of pulled back, and things got worse again. When the economy is weak, you do not need to cut spending. The raise in taxes probably won't hurt as bad, but it may not be the best time to do that either. So what's going to happen, if I had to guess, I would say President Obama has drawn a pretty big line in the sand on the tax issue. He says he is not signing an extension of tax cuts for the wealthy. He wants the top tax bracket, which is 35%, to jump back up to the Clinton-era levels of 39.5%. He's held pretty firm on that, so that's probably going to happen. I would say those taxes are going to go up, and there will be entitlement cuts of some sort. Democrats are now trying to say Social Security is off the table because Social Security does not, in fact, affect the deficit. Social Security is fine until at least 2037. The biggest target, really, I would assume they're going to go after is Medicare. That is the biggest driver of our debt for a number of reasons. Aging population, rising cost of healthcare. It's just, you got these two trains coming right at each other, and it's going to be a mess. So that is where I would say the bargain is going to be. There's going to be some kind of Medicare cuts, or at least limits on its future growth, combined with tax increases on the wealthy, as well as probably the capital gains tax. That was also cut under President Bush from 20% to 15%. That's probably, I would guess that's going to go up as well, because that's where the wealthy make most of their money, is in capital gains. So in the end, they're posturing now. This is all political posturing. I think that's somewhere along those lines is the deal they'll come up with. It'll be a balanced deal. It won't be, so bad for either side to accept, and it won't hurt our economy as much as the fiscal cliff would. CBO's already come out and said, and several other experts have said, if we go over the fiscal cliff and the tax rates for everybody goes up and the big spending cuts are initiated, we're going to slip back into recession. It's going to take a big chunk out of GDP, and we're going to be in trouble. It would actually help the deficit a lot. It will shave a lot of money off the deficit for next year, but it will weaken the economy. And of course, when the economy gets weaker, tax receipts go down. Less economic activity equals less tax revenue. So hopefully they get everything done. I feel pretty positive about it. I think after the election, things are starting to, I think they'll settle down a bit and Congress will get things done. Let me know what you think though. Leave a comment or a video response, and that's the end of this video.